If you already know how to use necesitar and querer in past tense in Spanish, you're only halfway to saying almost anything you need to say in past tense in Spanish. In the previous video, we spoke about querer and necesitar, and today it's time to speak about two very important verbs, tener and poder. Two of the most useful verbs we have in Spanish. And they're important because they carry a completely different kind of weight, and without them, you're still missing half the conversation. I'm Carlos, headmaster and creator of the Spanish B.O.S.S, based on simple structures. And in this video, I'm gonna show you how to use these two powerful verbs in past tense, in pretérito indefinido or past number one. So you can finally say almost anything you need to say in past tense. And yep, this is the piece that completes the whole system. This is the part 2 of this video. If you haven't watched the part 1, I'm just gonna leave it here, okay? So, vamos a darle. Okay, today we're gonna speak about tener and poder, okay? So let's go, let's do it really quick. So basically, we're gonna have tener que, this is the verb in the original form, that is just to have, right? Now, as you guys know, we're gonna be using this que if the word that comes after tener is a verb, but if it's not a verb, then we're just going to get rid of this que, okay? I'm just gonna leave it here. But okay, let's go. Let me just show you the conjugations of tener first. So for tener in past tense, I would say first, tuve que, right? That means I had. You form would be tuviste que, that's you had, okay? Then for the she form, we would say ella tuvo que. Then for the he form, we say él tuvo que, that means he had. Now the it form would be just tuvo que, that means it had. Now the we form would be tuvimos que. This one means we had. Then we have the form that we use for them, that it will be ellos tuvieron que, that means they had, okay? And at the end we have ustedes tuvieron que, that means you guys had, okay? This is just the you plural, okay? So we have tuve que, tuviste que, ella tuvo que, él tuvo que, tuvimos que, ellos tuvieron que, and ustedes tuvieron que. This is how we conjugate this verb tener in past tense. But now let me just show you the conjugations of the verb poder, okay? Okay, the verb poder is a little bit different because I would say it's a little bit weird. But it's only weird in English, it's not weird in Spanish. I just want to clarify this thing, okay? This verb in Spanish, it will work exactly the same as the rest of the verbs that we have in Spanish, which is completely normal. But in English, it works a little bit weird, but let me just show you what I mean with all this, okay? All right, as you guys probably know already, this verb poder will be two different translations to English, right? Like the original form or the infinitive form of this verb in English will be to be able, okay? But we can also say can, right? So if you see, we have two different versions of this verb, but in English. That means that if I say this thing in past tense, if I use this verb in past tense, I will have two different translations, okay? But it depends if you're speaking in positive, negative, or question form. But what I want to show you here with all this is that this verb is weird, but only in English, okay? Because it's have two different ways, but in Spanish, it's just a normal verb. We just conjugate the verb in past tense and that's it. But I just want to show you this because I've seen this thing a lot of times, okay? I've seen that people get confused all the time whenever we need to use this verb in past tense because it has two different ways in English, okay? But let me just show you. Let's start with the positive form, okay? So if I say pude, that is the past version of this, it will be I was able, okay? Now, you were able, the you form is pudiste, okay? So we would say you were able, okay? Now, the she was able, the she form, it will be ella pudo, okay? Ella pudo, it's just, now, el pudo is just a he form, right? It's just he was able. Then pudo is just the it form. Then we have pudimos, that is just the we form. So pudimos is just we were able. Then they form is just ellos pudieron. Okay, pronunciation is very important here. So ellos pudieron, it will be. And at the end, we have the you plural, that it will be ustedes pudieron. Okay, now just let me say all of them again so you can hear the pronunciation. You can repeat after me just to practice, okay? So in this case, pude, okay, I form, pude. This one, pudiste, pudiste. This one, ella pudo, él pudo, and pudo, right? This one is pudimos, ellos pudieron, right? Pudieron, ellos pudieron, and ustedes pudieron, okay? But okay, these are the conjugations that we're gonna be using for this verb in past tense. But if you guys remember, I told you that this pude or pudiste or any of this conjugation will have two different translations to English, okay? But now, let me just show you what I mean with that, okay? Hey, before continuing, if you're serious about speaking Spanish faster, join my school community. Try everything free for 7 days. You will get full access to all my courses, the Spanish Listening Lab, free live masterclasses, and direct support from native Spanish professors. No risk and absolutely no tricks. Just see how much progress you can make in the next 7 days. I'm gonna leave the link in the description, so go and check it out. Okay, let's use the conjugation that we have for the I form just as an example, okay? So let's say pude. This one will be a positive form, okay? So if I say pude, this thing in English will be just I was able, right? Pude is just I was able, positive form. But what happened if I want to say this thing in the negative form? What happened if I want to say no pude? So for this no pude, for this negative form, we're gonna have two different translations, okay? So you can say I was not able, or we can say also I couldn't, okay? So if you see this negative form, we'll have two different translations. I was not able or I couldn't. And if I'm honest, I don't really know what's the difference of this thing in English because for me, it's exactly the same. For me, in Spanish, it's just one word, pude, that's it. But now, what happened with the question form? So what if I say pude, question form, right? So it's just completely normal, right? So we're just gonna get I was able and we're just gonna put that in the question form that it will be like, was I able? And I guess that's it, okay? So as I was saying, this verb is just a little bit weird in English, but in Spanish it's completely normal. Why? Because it follows exactly the same rules that we have set already. It follows exactly the same rules that we already learned. It is exactly the same thing, nothing new. But we have pude, then we have negative form that is exactly the same as positive form, but just adding no right before the verb. That is exactly what we have here. And we have question form that one more time, it is exactly the same as positive form. If you see, it's the same pude. But we're just adding question marks and we just put like a questioning tone. That's it, okay? So this verb only works this way in English, okay? In Spanish, it's completely normal. And let's just keep in mind, this is not an English lesson. This is a Spanish lesson. I don't really know why this thing works this way. I just want to show you that this thing exists and in Spanish, it will be always the same. So if you say I was not able, it will be no pude. Or if you say I couldn't, it will be also no pude. That's it. It's always the same way in Spanish. It works exactly in the same way that we have learned already, okay? But now let's just do a few examples with these verbs just to be sure that everything is working correct, all right? So let's go. Hey guys, before continuing, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It helps me a lot. It means the world to me. And it costs you nothing because it's for free, okay? So just subscribe before you forget it because you will. I know you will. All right, let's get going. Okay, let's start doing a few examples with tener and then we jump to this poder, okay? So let's go. Okay, let's go. Let's do this. So let's say I had to work all day. How do we say that? Well, positive form, right? Super easy. How do we say I had? It's just, if you guys see there, it's just tuve que. Now, to work is just the verb in the default form, okay? In the infinitive form. So to work, it will be just trabajar. And then all day is just todo el día. That's it. Super simple. So I had to work all day. It's just tuve que trabajar todo el día. Now, let's go with we didn't have to do anything. Now, since this is negative form, we can say always positive form first, right? So the positive form will be we had to do, right? So we had is just tuvimos que, that's we had. And then to do, one more time, the verb in the infinitive form, like the verb in the default form. So we just say tuvimos que hacer. That means we had to do. That's positive form. But since this is negative form, we just need to add no right before the verb. So I'm just going to say no tuvimos que hacer. That means we didn't have to do. And then anything is just nada. So the whole thing, no tuvimos que hacer nada, or we didn't have to do anything. We want to say, why did you have to go there, okay? So let's go. Since this is a question, we can always say the positive form, as we said, right? And the positive form of this thing, it will be just you had, like past tense, because we're speaking in past, but we just need to say you had to go there. And if you see in this part that we have here, we don't have any did or doesn't or do or didn't, anything, right? We just have you had, this one in past, you had to go there. That's it. That's what we had to say. So how do we say you had? If you see there, it's just tuviste que, and then to go is just the verb in the infinitive form. So we just say ir. And then there in Spanish is just allá. So now we have already the positive form. This is tuviste que ir allá, or you had to go there. That's why we don't have did, because we're saying the positive form, okay? Now, how do we turn this thing into a question? Where basically we just need to add question marks, and my question is ready. So just adding these question marks, I'm already saying, did you have to go there, okay? And now at the end, we just need to add while in front. That is just pretty simple. We're just gonna say, ¿por qué? Right? question marks, and then we just say, ¿por qué tuviste que ir allá? Or, why did you have to go there? Okay? Now, let's just do a few examples with Pude. All right, let's go. So now we want to say she was able to arrive on time. How do we say she was able? Then this verb is just to be able, but in past, okay? So to be able is just poder. That means that we just need to conjugate poder in past tense. So she was able is just ella pudo. Now to arrive, just the verb in the infinitive form, in the default form. So we're just gonna say llegar, okay? And now, how do we say on time? It's just a tiempo. So she was able to arrive on time. It's just ella pudo llegar a tiempo. That's it. Now let's go with this negative form. Juan couldn't come to the meeting, okay? So how do we say couldn't? Let's just keep in mind, this couldn't is just the verb to be able. It's just the verb poder, but in past tense. If you guys remember, we were saying that this to be able or poder will have two different translations to English, right? Was able, and also we would say couldn't if we're speaking in the negative form. Since this is negative form, then couldn't, it would be just poder in past tense. That's it. So how do we say that? How do we say Juan couldn't? So if I want to say Juan couldn't, in Spanish it will be exactly the same thing as if I were saying Juan was not able. And we know how to say that, okay? So Juan was not able, it's just poder, but in past tense. So let's conjugate that, let's say that. So we're gonna say Juan was able, like the past tense is just Juan pudo. But since this is negative form, I just need to add note before the verb. Same rules as always, okay? So Juan couldn't is just Juan no pudo. That's it. Now, we have been saying all this time that in Spanish, we just conjugate one verb per phrase. In this case, no pudo is already conjugated. That means this verb has to be in the infinitive form, not conjugated, okay? So we don't have to touch it. We just need to say the original form of this verb. That's it. So how do we say to come in Spanish? It's just venir. So we have Juan no pudo venir. And then to the meeting is just a la reunión. That's it. So the whole thing will be Juan no pudo venir a la reunión. Now, let's go with this one. I was finally able to sell my old house. So let's say finally first. So we don't have to worry about this finally anymore. So let's say just say finalmente, okay? Now, let's say what we have left. We need to say I was able. How do we say that? Well, just pude. That's it. Now we have to sell. In this case, to sell is just vender. And now the rest is just context. How do we say my old house? It's just mi casa vieja. That's it. So the whole thing will be finalmente pude vender mi casa vieja. That's it, okay? Now, just keep in mind that these two verbs and also the two verbs that we learned in the previous video, they are very, very important because you can say a lot of things with these verbs, okay? What I mean is that you can use these verbs as a life jacket. If you don't know how to conjugate a verb, if you don't remember the conjugation of an irregular verb in Spanish in past tense, then you can just try to say it using the four verbs that we have learned, okay? So if I don't remember how to say she worked last weekend, I can say she had to work last weekend. And I guarantee you that people is going to understand exactly the same because at the end of the day, the goal of any language is just to be able to communicate. It's just to be able to understand each other. If the other person understands what I'm trying to say, then it's okay, okay? But now, and as always, I'm going to leave you guys with a few phrases here in English. So you need to let me know in the comments, how would you say that in Spanish, right? Okay, these are the four phrases that we're going to be doing, okay? You couldn't finish on time. Were you able to speak with Maria? Then we have, they had to leave a few minutes ago. And a question form, why did you have to sell your car? Okay, if you guys are serious about learning Spanish, you definitely should check our Spanish school community. You will be able to have direct contact to my team of Spanish natives professors. It's win-win, you have nothing to lose. Right now, we have 7 days free trial. If you don't like it, you can just leave, no question asked. Okay, after saying all that, I guess we have got to the end of this video. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments. Also, one more time, if you haven't subscribed, just subscribe before you forget it. And, well, thank you very much for your attention. I guess I see you in the next video.